Welcome to the Art of Black Miami podcast, organized by Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau. Our stories introduce emerging and experienced artists who make Miami an exciting place to live and visit. I'm Rosie Gordon-Wallace, curator and arts advocate. Miami is my home since the 1970s. My passion is cultivating the vision and talent of contemporary artists from the Caribbean diaspora, artists of color, and immigrant artists. Many cultures and languages come together to shape the character of Miami. We have Jenny Perez with us this afternoon. You're a Caribbean American artist based in Miami, Florida. Do you want to expand on that?
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, it's a big part of who I am. My mother is Cuban and my father is Dominican. Had the pleasure of going to both countries. I'm very much influenced by that.
Are you using the new term Latinx?
I can identify with that.
What does Latinx mean to you?
It's just a new generation of Latin Americans, millennial culture. Being a person that is first generation is very special, because I understand that when I have kids, they won't be able to say that. There's a lot of new vocabulary, especially over the last 5 or 6 years.
As I have learned about your work, I noticed that you began as an apprentice with internationally recognized artists who inspired you to explore your own voice. Tell me what you learned from working with the graffiti artist Ernie Velez, who's pretty popular.
I love Ernie. Yeah. Ernie taught me what it was like to really be an artist in every sense of the word. He had a certain level of humility. At first, you meet this person who has such a career, and my heart was beating super fast, and I was thinking he's going to be very posh, or you have this like preconceived idea of what that person's going to be, and he was just a normal person and very relatable and had a lot to say and still does, and is always so willing to share. For me, that is at least one of the most important qualities that any artist can have.
Where's he from?
He's actually from New York. I always tell him I had FOMO because FOMO actually it translates to fear of missing out.
Yes.
Another millennial term.
Yes.
And he talked to me a lot about growing up in New York City in the 1980s. And for me, that was such a monumental time in artistic history. So I always envied him for being able to live through that. Very special time.
Can you share with us the artist that had the greatest influence on your style of working?
In 2017, I had the pleasure of seeing Jean-Michel Basquiat's exhibit in a museum in Italy, and it was over 150 original artworks. And I think that was the day that I completely shifted my narrative. I just love the expression behind his work and the fluidity and the vulnerability and the rawness. To me, that's really special, and I try to carry that energy in the work I do today.
And it's evident in the work that you do. Can you share with us how you became involved in the early years of the Wynwood Street art scene?
So beginning in 2008, I was hanging out with a lot of college art kids. I wasn't able to go to college myself. I decided to opt out of that debt and apprentice instead. So I became the girl that was friends with all the artists in that neighborhood. So just off of Biscayne and 15th Street was an art school, which is not too far away from Wynwood. All the art kids were brave enough to get in their cars and drive around every once in a while and open their windows and take some photographs of the artwork that was being put up. And so we got to see it. We were like running out of the cars, going to take a picture in front of a mural and running back into the car because we were afraid of the dangers of being in such a neighborhood. It was underdeveloped. It was like a desert town. I think that was like the very beginning.
I agree. The Wynwood scene was not the Wynwood scene that we see now in 2022. Mm-hmm. When we talked about art, you describe yourself as a self-taught painter. Mm-hmm. But I know that you have been committed to a disciplined studio practice, which I admire.
I felt like not having gotten a degree in art, I needed to overcompensate. The only way for me that made sense and that was going to be profitable in the long run was to be disciplined and have a daily practice in the studio and spend more than 4 hours at a time. Any less than 4 hours, I wasn't getting anything done. It's like you get there and you need to sit with yourself for a couple hours and understand where you're at and what is it that you have to say for the day. It started off as a sense of insecurity, and then it just grew into something that created the foundation of my work. I see a lot of artists that still seem a little bit lost, and I always tell them, you need to work. If you're not working and you're not in the studio, how do you even know who you are?
There is a stylized female figure that is repeated, especially in your big canvases. What does she look like and how does she represent you?
It's this image of a very bold figure, usually in black line. There's an abstraction in the background. I go in with a black marker or oil pen, whatever it is that I'm using. It's typically black. And I define her eyelash, I define her nose, I define her lip, I define a neck. And sometimes I've given her a body. She's constantly evolving. When I first started painting, I understood the importance of having an identity as an artist. I went with that image of her really quickly, really fast. I found her, and she was something that I wanted to repeat, like a language I had discovered. And then immediately I got boxed in, and then I became, the Afro-Cuban artist, then I became the pop artist, and then I became the street artist. And it was just this constant boxing in effect that the public was having in response to her specifically and to the way in which I was depicting her in the work. And so right now, currently, I'm in a space where I'm still identifying with that, but also letting go as well. It's important to understand we as artists sometimes get too comfortable. And if something really scares you, it's possible that there's something really spectacular on the other end of that. Losing her, in a way, terrifies me. For a long time, she was me. And if you look at all of my paintings, you can see me in that. I can see myself, at least. I know where I was in that time in my life, mentally, spiritually.
Do you think there's an influence from your mural life?
Of
that
course.
This figure has.
Of course. All a muralist really wants, and I learned this through Ernie, again, because he's a graffiti artist. People want to see your tag. You want to see your name out there. And it's that graffiti mentality. I'm not a graffiti artist, but how can I make a tag? And then I just wanted to kind of mimic that energy into canvas pieces.
You have a really great sense around branding. You have collaborated with global brands for promotional campaigns.
There's never like music playing when I get these kinds of phone calls, and in my mind I think there's a symphony that's gonna play. It's a movie moment where, a brand like Armani Exchange calls you, or the last one I almost fainted was Prada. They're always very exciting, but there's always a fear and a hesitation because you want to make sure that you stay true to yourself and you don't want to sell yourself out just because somebody's throwing a fat check at you, but really make it work and make it make sense. And so I try my best to work with brands that align with who I am as a person and what excites me. Because if not, it's just going to feel inauthentic.
When these brands call you, what are these campaigns asking for?
Sometimes they don't even want the art. They want the essence. They want me to just show up and be interviewed and put hair and makeup on and put their logo on me. And I think that's beautiful too, because the art primarily is the artist. So yeah, I think it's really cool. But I always expect to have to work really, really hard with those campaigns. And it's the easiest work I've ever done.
I know you as an artist have seen all over the community. What's your personal motivation to working with grassroots artists, grassroots projects, just turning up in community?
I just remember really vividly being an artist when I was a little girl and being obsessed with that idea of what it meant to be an artist. When I ever have had an opportunity to meet people that I've looked up to, I've never forgotten them. So I think it's just about paying it forward I went to my old elementary school and I read the kids a book and I showed them pictures of my work. I want to do more of that. I went to my old high school and I did a mural for free there as well.
Where did you go to high school?
I went to Monsignor Pace.
You did?
I grew up in public school, Carroll City, Opelika. However, 9th grade year, something clicked for me. I had to go into like a technical school because it was in my neighborhood, and they didn't offer art classes. And I remember being quite depressed my entire 9th grade year. So one day after school, I walked from there, which was the 103rd Street, walked all the way to Opelika to Monsignor Pace because I knew that it was the only school close enough that had art classes. So I walked there, I was sweating, didn't have an appointment, walked into the office, asked for the dean. I printed out my report card and I sat with the dean, and to this day I'm like enamored by this moment. The dean looks at me and says, "So you want to come here?" I said, "Yeah, do you guys have art classes?" He's like, "Yeah, we do." I said, "Yeah, I want to go here." And then he signed the paper, and before you know it, I had a scholarship. So that's how that happened.
Yeah, it's a private school.
Yeah, it's a private school. He basically gave me a full scholarship, full ride for 3 years just because I was that kid that barged in, sweating, without an appointment, without my parents.
Tell us about what's in store for you.
Right now, the most exciting thing is that I've decided to start working on monumental sculptures. That's been a lot of fun.
What does that mean?
Ginormous aluminum sculptures being installed in the public. And so I started with Aventura Mall. It's an international mall. I have a solo exhibit coming up at the Miami Beach Botanical Garden. It's my first one in a very long time. I want to do a solid 10 pieces, and they're going to vary in size. So we're talking as small as 8 inches and as big as 72 inches.
Is there a theme for this exhibition?
So the title of the show is I Was Born in the Spring. There's a lot of exploration of nature and objects, but also this prenatal energy as well. That feeling and the essence of birth. There's even a piece called The First Hello, and I explore my relationship with my parents and my brother.
Are there other firsts for you in 2022 that you haven't shared?
Diaspora Vibe Cultural Arts Incubator invited me to go to Suriname this summer for an international residency. I'm very excited not only to be there, but to have that connection to the other artists that they work with and to be supported by them. And it's a beautiful opportunity to collaborate and to learn and to grow.
If you're writing a letter to yourself for the future, what do you see and how do you see Miami's art scene evolving?
Miami's art scene is evolving so quickly. I think it's important to photograph everything and to really, really document it as much as possible. It's one of the things I regret the most about my years in Wynwood is not having enough photos and enough documentation. A lot of people are curious and they're wide-eyed and they're young and they just have a lot to say. And every artist that I've met thus far in this city has been very inspiring. So just document as much as you can.
This was an Art of Black Miami podcast sponsored by the Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau. I am Rosie Gordon-Wallace. Today we introduce you to Jenny Perez, a visual artist committed to a disciplined studio practice. She experiments and learns from her mentors and the cultural landscape that surrounds her, opening up opportunities to amplify her creative voice. We recorded this conversation in the historic neighborhood of Little Haiti, a mecca for Black art and culture. Art of Black Miami highlights the year-round art and culture scene in Miami's heritage neighborhoods and across communities in Greater Miami and Miami Beach. If you are enjoying our stories, visit artofblackmiami.com to learn more. Engage us on social media, post and share using the hashtag #ArtofBlackMiami. The Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau is an accredited, independent, not-for-profit sales and marketing organization. GMCVB's mission is to attract visitors to Greater Miami and Miami Beach. for leisure, business, and conventions. For up-to-date art events, promotions, and more information, visit artofblackmiami.com.